People hold me ultimately responsible for the actions and reputation of the global football community, whether it's a decision for the hosting of a World Cup or a corruption scandal. We, or I, cannot monitor everyone all of the time. If people want to do wrong, they will also try to hide it. But it must fall to me to bear the responsibility for the reputation and well-being of our organization and to find a way forward to fix things.
That was Sepp Blatter, the president of FIFA, about an hour ago as he kicked off the opening ceremonies of the 65th Congress of FIFA. And tonight on ESPN at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, a one-hour special on the arrests involving a scandal of all scandals involving FIFA that will be hosted by the host of Outside the Lines and the grand poobah, if you will, of the worldwide leader in sports, the general himself, Bob Lee, here on the Rich Eisen Show. How are you, Bob?
Richard, my friend, it's been so long. How you doing?
It's been too long, Bob. Absolutely too long. So what do you make of Sepp Blatter's comments from today, Bob?
Was that Sepp Blatter or was that Captain Smith of the Titanic?
But he doesn't. He's rearranging the deck chairs, Bob. You'd think it's even. I don't know if you saw any of this extravagance that went down.
Oh, I saw it. I mean, this is typical FIFA choreography, and I mean that both in the literal and metaphorical sense. Look, what else can the gentleman say? Clearly, U.S. prosecutors who only involve, the Attorney General of the United States of America and the Director of the FBI clearly all but said yesterday they're continuing to work up the ladder on this and clearly hope to make a case against him based on folding up the people they've already charged. But clearly nothing has been developed. And so, he is still, odds on, numerically, the favorite to be reelected to a fifth term as FIFA president tomorrow. And that tells you everything you need to know about world soccer.
Yeah, because, UEFA basically said that he was asked by them to step down. He refused. Richard Branson just posted an open letter, if you will, to the world community to say it's time for Sepp Blatter to go.
And every Brit hates Blatter since the 2018 vote went against England. So that's
where that comes from. So
yeah.
So how does this guy keep surviving, Bob? Why?
It's the United Nations General Assembly, where every small nation has a vote and every large nation has a single vote. Mm-hmm. The same thing with FIFA at the Congress to elect a president. If you're asking how he survives, he has done a look. When he took over at FIFA as president, they were nearly bankrupt. They had very, very few assets. FIFA generated $4 billion in revenue from the 2014 World Cup in Brazil, and believe me, I was there and I saw a lot of it generated with my own eyes. They raised this money from the World Cup, which through sponsorships and tickets and whatnot and television rights, they have turned into a massive single event. And then that money comes to FIFA, and is some of it, exactly how much, getting a true accounting, that's the elusive part, is parceled out to the soccer nations around the world. And when you look at 50-some-odd African nations and 35 or 40 Asian nations, many are small countries, impoverished, not considered fully developed, and this money arrives to develop soccer. Now, what happens to the money when the money gets to these nations is a whole other story. But that's how he's the mayor of world soccer, and Rich, he's plowing all the streets when it snows.
Bob Lee of ESPN, Outside the Lines, a special 1 hour tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on all of this, joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So what about the Americans' role in this, Bob? Why do you think the United States is undertaking this?
Well, I won't say fell into the lap of U.S. law enforcement, but Chuck Blazer, who clearly turned state's evidence and had to essentially when he blew the whistle, the former head of CONCACAF, this Falstaffian figure with the huge beard, who had not declared federal income for the better part of the decade, and that doesn't get you off on the right foot when the feds come knocking on your door. Blew the whistle on a bit of bribery and impropriety in 2011, but it all began to unravel. So it started here. And it involved, I don't think it's unrelated to the aggressive way that U.S. financial transactions have all been scrutinized internationally since 9/11. I mean, the banking laws are very strict about structuring and reporting and where the money comes and goes. And so once the sweater began to unravel, once Blazer had blown the whistle on some of these the back and forth, and they began to roll up people and work their way up the chain, and money's coming through U.S. banks. You're a fan of The Wire?
Of course.
You remember what Lester Freeman called the headshot, when the feds would get you with a false mortgage application. Mom and dad give you $20,000 to help you make the down payment. You don't fully represent it. You say it's your money. Well, that's how they flipped one of Jack Warner's sons. He gave his son money for $1 million condo in Miami, and it was that's exactly how they leverage these people. They turn two sons against their father.
So how does this all get somehow these roads lead to Sepp Blatter, who essentially is playing?
Well, no, they don't. Didn't you just hear him?
Yeah,
they don't.
I know.
I can't watch everybody.
He's putting on a Bialystok and Bloom type performance there.
If you
behind
got
him.
it, flaunt it, baby.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, and you take a look at what he's saying. And it's I know nothing, and we're all happy here.
He actually said that last year when asked about the resale of World Cup tickets, which was a multi-million-dollar operation. That was the quote of the day from Sports Business Daily. I know nothing. Sergeant Schultz.
So how does this play out, Bob? Walk me through this.
The extradition of everyone who's been arrested, especially in Switzerland, is not a given because you've got to make your case, and they will fight these particular individuals. The U.S. Justice Department, needs to get these people on U.S. soil and charged and whatnot and begin to show them what's at stake for them and begin to, see if they can develop a case against Blatter, if such a case exists. It may not. Those who know him say he's more in love with power than money. Because he has money, and he's treated as a head of state. He flies in private planes, and he's given great deference around the world. So the idea of making a criminal case against Sepp Blatter may never be realized. But the fact that soccer is so discredited as a seriously administered sport, that should matter, but it doesn't matter to enough countries yet. This talk, Michel Platini, the head of the European Confederation, talked about maybe that European teams or nations would boycott the executive committee. That's just ceding the power to those that are in the Blatter camp. It's not there's a lot of gray here, a lot of nuance. There's no clear-cut ending here. And he's not going to climb to the steps of his helicopter on the South Lawn and give us the double V sign.
So how? What's the percentage of the vote he wins by tomorrow? What do you give?
I don't know, but if you just look at, I would highly suspect, and we'll have some live reports tonight from Zurich. I'd love to know how the United States is going to vote. Last time, Sunil Gulati, president of the Federation, cast the U.S. vote in favor of Blatter's reelection in 2011.
He can't do that, Bob. He can't do that this time. He just can't.
I don't know. I would, one reason I think that vote was cast for Blatter last time was clearly he was going to be reelected, and clearly you don't want to be on the outs with those in power. How do you affect change if you're not close to the throne? Now, if you vote against him now on a clear set principle, given what's been charged and alleged here, but he still wins re-election, are you now, off the most favored nation status?
Bob, I got to say, I'm
just being practical.
No, I know that, Bob.
Here.
I understand you're being practical, but if you're also just take a look at it, the United States, as you point out, Attorney General, the head of the FBI, Putin is coming out and saying the United States is improperly persecuting people, and if the guy who's in charge of United States soccer, amongst all this, still raises his hand and say, yes, Sepp, you're our guy. Does he really think that with all of this going on, we're going to still get a World Cup? We're not going to be in the Legion of Death, the
group of death.
The group of death the next time we get a draw, Bob? You could make book on that right now, don't you think?
Well, again, the hope would be, look, there's a lot of fatuous thinking among American soccer fans that they would revote the 2018 and 22 World Cups. I find that highly unlikely. Maybe 2022 if the Swiss find a smoking gun. They did raid FIFA headquarters, but I would think everyone is smart enough here not to leave the dear Sepp, this is your read receipt for the $3 million I left in your bank email sitting in there. You kind of deleted that and maybe sent the hard drive to the bottom of Lake Como. So I don't, unless they find something like that, I don't think you're going to see a revote. I mean, Russia constructions are moving along. Qatar has, they've already, defined their plans. So the 2026 would be the next United States World Cup. And trust me, when the 2022 Cup, Alexei and I were live on the air at that moment.
Yeah.
And they say, Qatar. He pulls the envelope out, the card out of the envelope, and Alexei said, "I'm gutted," as he said on the air, and we all were. If you watch Gulati's presentation that time to the decision makers, to the executive committee, it was masterful. They had Bill Clinton, I believe they had Morgan Freeman, but Gulati just made the case that there's a tradition from '94. There are facilities unlike any other nation. I mean, we could turn on a dime and host a World Cup in 6 months without breaking a sweat in this country. Mm-hmm. It's not, but in part of its thinking is though it's not a major event. I mean, South Africa transformed portions of the country. Brazil, you had the great passion of the Brazilians. So this is a Byzantine puzzle of international politics. Soccer is almost the least of it.
Bob, thanks for calling in. I really appreciate you helping make heads or tails of this. I look forward to watching your special tonight.
I can't make heads or tails of it.
I know.
If I helped you in one teeny tiny way, I'm waiting to see how the United States votes tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But I don't think, again, it's a pure numbers game. And if it's a pure numbers game, if it's Chicago politics, except they're playing it with a soccer ball.
I got to ask you one last question, Bob. What's with the beard? How long are we going to have it? What do you got there?
You don't follow Twitter?
Well, I don't. I mean, I do, but I haven't seen it.
Swiss authorities had developed an unhealthy interest in my beard, so I felt it needed to disappear for a while.
Okay, I got it.
I took it off this morning.
Really? Is this breaking news?
Well, maybe to you. Yes, it went. It sleeps with the fishes.
As of this morning, Bob?
As of this morning, because I began growing it the morning of the World Cup final in Rio, July 13th, and I figured what better day to end its life on this earth, this current incarnation, than the day after the FIFA arrest.
Bob, can I put that on the Rich Eisen show bottom line, or do I need a second source?
No, you're getting it from a primary source.
Okay.
Fortunately, I didn't save any of the whiskers for you for DNA testing or resale.
So it's an anti-protest.
It's just
shaving.
I'm trying to. It started with the World Cup final in Rio, and it ends with the FIFA arrests. What better theater could one attach to?
Literally and figuratively coming clean here on the Rich Eisen Show.
There you go.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it.
Rich, be good.
You bet. That's Bob Lee, the General.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.